So we are going to start with the concept of the Theodosius Dobzhansky. He clearly stated that there is nothing makes sense in evolution. Sorry, there is nothing makes sense in biology without the light of evolution. So it means that understanding the concept of evolution is very, very important to understand the concept of life. Because remember when you said biology, biology means study of life. Biology means study of life. Biology means study of life. So if you are doing any course that related to biology, whether medicine, whether you are in nursing, you are in pharmacy, veterinary medicine, and whatever course you are studying, you have to understand the concept of evolution, because if you didn't get the concept of evolution, you will not understand the content of the course that you are doing. So that is what this to also Dobzhansky says. He said that if you didn't understand the concept of evolution, it means that you will not you will not get a general insight of what actually happening in terms of the study of any kinds of living organisms. Because the concept of evolution is just trying to tell us the origin of life, how living organisms change over time, how these organisms relate with one another, how one comes from another organism. So this thing is actually related to the concept of evolution. So that is why it means that if you want to understand life, it is very, very important to understand the origin of that particular life. Because if you didn't understand the origin of the life, how it actually came from, how one organism relate with another organisms, it means that seriously you may not have a full knowledge and understanding of the concept of that life. So that is why understanding the concept of evolution is very, very important according to uh, Theodosius Dobzhansky. Okay, and then as I said, evolution, because in biology we are just trying to talk about living organisms. So if we are trying to talk about living organisms, we have to consider a lot of things. That is why number one, we have to think. Let's think for all of us here. Let's think for a while about the planet Earth and the diversity of living organisms. Even from our micro environment, from the environment that we are living, there are variety, there are different diverse organisms that exist on Earth. So let's think about the planet Earth, because there are so many planets. First, we need to think, which of these planets even support life? Is it only Earth? Is it Jupiter? Is it Mercury? Why only in Earth? Because generally we know that the life exists only in the planet Earth. So why in planet Earth? We need to ask ourselves this question. And in this planet Earth, why is it that we have the diversity of living organisms? Because of course we have different diversity of living organisms. We have different kinds of living organisms. So many of them, because currently it has been actually known on Earth. On Earth, there are about 1.7. There are about 1.7 to 1.8 1.8 million species of living organisms. Million species of living organisms on Earth. There are so many of these species on Earth that exist, 1.7 to 1.8. And of course, now if you are talking about life, if we are talking about life, we have to look at it from the concept of so many things. Among those lives, how many are extinct? Extinct organisms or extinct life. That is, when we said extinct life, it means that are those organisms that survive on Earth, but they are not longer in existence. They have passed. They are not on Earth now. And then when we are also considering life, we also need to also look at the concept of endangered organisms or endangered life. Endangered life. When you said endangered life, what does that mean? It means that those organisms that they are not completely eliminated on Earth, they are still in existence, but they are almost close to disappear completely. That is endangered life. Those organisms that are not extinct, but they are moving toward the extinct life. It means that they are close to disappear. And then also when we are talking about life, the next thing we also look at the concept of speciation. Speciation. What is speciation? It means how new species of living organisms can actually be obtained or can be or is a process where a new species of living organisms is being or is emerged. The emergence of new species of living organisms is what you call speciation. So all these things we need to actually look at them very well when we are studying the concept of evolution, because it has been clearly stated that currently, or it has been known that about 4.7 4.7 billions, 5.7 billions living organisms are now extinct. They are extinct. It means that there are organisms that survive on Earth, but they are not longer in existence now. They are called extinct organisms, and about 1.7 billions of them is being or are being known. And currently now on Earth, there are about 1.7 to 1.8 million species of living organisms that are surviving, but about 4.7 billions are not longer in existence. They are disappeared. They are not actually longer in existence. And of course, we have endangered species. And at the same time, why is it that some organisms are being disappeared completely on Earth? It's because the environment is not in need of them. The environment do not support their life. The environment do not actually, like for example, let's think, because in the concept of evolution, the most important thing is try to connect one thing to the other. There are like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs they are organisms, and they are carnivorous. They are carnivorous animals that survive about 330 million years ago. They survive around 330 to 340 million years ago. And according to the knowledge of evolution, we actually, it has been speculated that the first living organism, the first human species, that exists on Earth is around 400,000 years ago. 400,000 years ago. Okay, I think, ladies and gentlemen, you should understand when we are discussing the concept of evolution, some of the terms are actually related to religious fact. So we need to look at them very well. If it actually coincides with our religion, then we sit down and look at it. And of course, if we are to reject it, and then we will reject it. That is why at the end of the lectures from this part, we are going to look at the misconception of evolution. That is where we are going to look at the evolution from the religious point of view. So you see, you imagine when dinosaurs and humans are living in the same environment. Imagine that, you think about that. So that is why some organisms are eliminated and some are developing. So that is endangered, that is extinction and speciation. Extinction is the complete disappearance of living organisms, and speciation is the production of new organisms or generation of new species of living organisms. And of course, as I said, about 4.7 billions organisms are now extinct, and now currently there are 1.7 to 1.8 million species of living organisms. And then now we are now talking about the planet and then the diversity of living organisms. So the diversity of living organisms, as I said, that we have so many of them. So what is biodiversity? Because we need to look at it from the concept of biodiversity. What is the biodiversity? What is biodiversity? course, bio means life. So biodiversity, it means or it refers to the all varieties of life that exists on Earth. All variety, irrespective of whether they are bacteria, they are animal, even or maybe they are insects, they are arthropods, maybe or maybe any other organisms, any organisms that you know. When you said biodiversity, it means or it refers to the variety of living organisms or the variety of life that exists on Earth. And of course, biodiversity can be described and measured at three different levels. You can look at the varieties of living organisms at different levels. So we measured and we describe the biodiversity in three different levels. We have we have what you call species diversity. We have what you call species diversity. We have what you call species diversity. Under biodiversity, we have what you call species diversity. And then second, we have genetic diversity. We have genetic diversity. And then the next thing, which is the last one, we have what you call ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity. So if you want to describe and measure the biodiversity, you have to look at it from the point of these three different angles, which is species diversity, genetic diversity, and ecosystem diversity. What is species diversity? The species diversity refers to the number of different species that exist on Earth. It refers to the number of different species that exist on Earth. The number of different species of organisms that exist, different species of organisms that exist on Earth. That is species diversity. So as I said, currently now on Earth, currently we have about 1.7 to 1.8 million species of organisms that are surviving. And then the next thing, we also have genetic diversity. So what is genetic diversity? When we say genetic diversity, refers to the variation in genes within all species. Because of course, within the same species of organisms, within the same or within different species or across different species of organisms, you may have an organisms that have some genes that have the same functions, but they have different varieties. Because when you say genes, of course, genes is a sequence of DNA that produce a functional protein. So each gene is responsible for a particular function. So within or between a species of organisms, you can have the variation in genes. Maybe in organism A, maybe the same genes, they have 5 of them, and in another organisms, maybe they have 6 of them. And at the same time, maybe in another organisms, the number of genes are the same, but in terms of the arrangement of the nucleotide sequence might also be varied. So when we say genetic diversity, refers to the variations or the differences in genes within all species of the living organisms. So we have that. And then the next thing is ecosystem diversity. What is ecosystem diversity? Ecosystem diversity also refers to the varieties of ecosystem on Earth. So what is an ecosystem? We need to understand an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a system that formed by a population of many species of organisms, and they are interacting with one another and their environment. Of course, within, like, for example, now you can have an ecosystem where you can have human, you can have goats, you can have sheep, you can have cats, you can have dogs. So all this, there are different species of organisms. So there are population of different species of organisms. And there is an interaction between these organisms as well as also their environment. So that is ecosystem diversity, because there, like for example, We cannot have the same ecosystem with lion. We cannot. It's not possible. So that is ecosystem diversity. There are some population of species of organisms that survive in same environment, interact with one another. And so also at the same time, you can also have another set of organisms survive in different set of environment and interact with the environment. So that is what you call ecosystem diversity. So you may not have different population of species to survive in the same environment, and that is what you call uh, the diversity of living organisms. So that is why number one, whenever we are talking about evolution, we have to first look at the earth itself and the diversity of the organisms that exists on the earth. It's very, very important. Okay. I think I saw someone raising hands. Is it Nafisa? Do you have question before I proceed? Okay. So now the next thing that we are going to look at is actually what are the cause of this diversity. So there is what we call a theory of spatial creation. The theory of spatial creation. When we say theory of spatial creation, is a theory that stated that all organisms were created by God. All organisms were created by God. So generally, whenever we are talking about biodiversity, or sorry, spatial creation or theory of spatial creation, is more of a religious concern. It's more of religious concept. It's more of religious concept. Because as I said, a lot of people are having this misconception. Some are saying that organisms, some of these organisms are created by nature, or maybe some of these organisms came from dust. Some of these organisms come from this. So that is why we are going to look at a lot of concepts like the theory of spontaneous generation. That is what we call a theory of spontaneous generation. We say that the living organisms I came from, or all living organisms came from dust. That is theory of spontaneous generation. But now actually we are starting with the theory of spatial creation. What this theory of spatial creation is actually trying to tell us is that all living organisms are created by God. All living organisms are created by God. So you should know this. All living organisms are created by God, and in some other way, you can see that they tells you that these living organisms are created by supernatural power. So that is a theory of spatial creation. It's more of religious concept. It's more of religious concept that all living organisms are created by God. All living organisms are created by God, and there is different beliefs starting from Hinduism, starting from Christianity, starting also from the point of from the Islamic point of view. So there is this concept of theory of spatial creation. Like for example, in Hinduism, they will tell you that all living organisms are being created by Brahma. Brahma is actually the god of Hindu. That is Hinduism. They believe in Brahma. So they will tell you that all living organisms are created by Brahma. And of course, from the Muslim, from the Islamic point of view, there is a Quran that tell us that okay, these all living organisms are created by God. That is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and there is a lot of 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 um, verses in the Quran that supports that all living organisms are being created by God. So that is a theory of spontaneous. Sorry, that is a theory of spatial creation. The theory of spatial creation is just to tell us that all living organisms are being created by God. Because as we are going with time, we'll see that in the concept of evolution, that's a lot of things will come. Like for example, the first living organisms from evolution. That is, I'm just now talking from the point of evolutionary biology. That the first living organisms that exist on Earth or that was created on Earth is prokaryote. is prokaryotes. It's a prokaryotic organisms, and it's about 3.9 billion years ago. So that is the first living organisms that exist on Earth is prokaryotic cells, which is about 3.9 billion years ago. So, but there is what they call the photomorphism, or yeah, photomorphism, because from that point it tells us that okay, from that prokaryotic organisms that we have, all other living organisms are emerged or are being or are came from prokaryotic cells. It means that from the bacteria, then it now develop into another organisms, and from that organisms or from organisms A, which is prokaryotic cell, then another organisms or another species of organisms is being evolved from prokaryotic cell, and then from that B also C produce species D produce species F. That is how it continues. So there is a theory where we are going to talk about the origin of life. So now we are talking about the theory of spatial creation, that all living organisms or all life on earth is being created by God. And there is also a postulate. There are three basic postulates of spatial creation, and I'm now going to list them. This postulate of theory of simultaneous generation, number one, says that all different kinds of life were created at the same time or short intervals without any relationship with one another. That the first postulate is saying that all living organisms that we have on earth, all the living organisms that we have on earth are created at the same time, or maybe at short intervals without any relationship with one another. That is what the first postulate is trying to tell us, that okay, like for example, now I'm saying that this bacteria is the first living organism that exists on Earth, which is about 3.9 billion years ago. And then from there, another organism is emerged from this. So it means that organisms B is dependent on organism A, which is prokaryote, and also organism C is dependent on is depend on organism C, and also organism B is dependent on organism C. Then B also produce F, G, then it continues like that. But according to the theory or according to the postulate by spatial creation, it stated that all living organisms are created on at the same time, and there is none of them that actually came from any other. So there is no relationship with any other organisms. They are independent and they're all created at the same time. That is the first postulate of theory of spatial creation. As as I was saying, then the second postulate stated that they were created in the same form in which they exist at present, having undergone no change since their creation. According to the theory of evolution, even the definition of evolution itself, it's just trying to, the definition of evolution is telling us how living organisms change over time. That if you have organisms A, it's after a very long period of time with the change of the environment, then the living organisms will also change at the same time. But the second postulate of the theory of spatial creation is telling us that all the living organisms are created in the same form, in the same form in which they exist at present, and they do not change, they do not undergo any change whatsoever, will not actually influence their change. So they will not change. They will not change whether there is even a change in environment or there is any selection pressure. They will not change. That is the second theory of spontaneous generation. It means that once living organisms is being created, then it will continue surviving the way it is, and it will never change, irrespective with whatever kinds of change in the environment, with whatever situation. It means that they will never change, and that is the second postulate. And then the third postulate of this theory of spontaneous generation, that their bodies and organs, the body and the organs of living organisms have been specially designed to fully meet the needs of the environment in which they have created. It means that all living organisms that are actually being created, they are designed with the body and organ that will suit the environment that they will survive in. Like, for example, we have fish. Fish, they have gills and they are using gills to float in water. So it means that these fish are being created with gills so that to suit their survival in water. And these are actually the thoughts postulates of spatial creation. And there is also a kind of what we call misconception or criticism. There is also what we call a criticism in the theory of this spatial creation by the scientists. There is this criticism by the scientists according to the theory of simultaneous generation. Number one of the criticism said that there is no scientific rationality in it. That this theory of spatial creation, there is no scientific rationality. There is no scientific rationality because the theory of spatial creation is stated that all living organisms is being created by God, and there is no any scientific rationality according to them. So this is one of the criticism that the scientists actually talk about, that there is no scientific rationality, and that is the first one. And the second criticism, it is only had religious belief related to the theory. So it is only religious beliefs. There is no scientific fact. There is no any scientific rationality. So it only had religious beliefs related to the theory. And then another criticism by the scientists according to this is also that organisms were created by supernatural power or by God, which was impractically to be proved. It means that it is not practically. So, and then the next thing apart from this, as I said, the third one stated that the organisms were created by supernatural power, which was impractically to be proved. So that is the third one. And the fourth one is that the concept of spatial creation theory was not accepted by all. So it's not everybody that accepted that all living organisms are being created by God. So you should know this. This is also another criticism. And then also there is another criticism, which is number 5, that the age of fossils found were of different time frame, which demonstrates the evolution occurs at various epochal time. So you see, according to the theory of spatial creation, that all living organisms are created at the same time. But the scientists, they are able to actually get a fossils. What is fossils? When we said fossils is a remnant of living organisms after the death, after they die. So the remnant, it can be a bones and so many other things. We will come to talk about that. So according to when we said puzzles, it means that is what left after the death of or after complete decay of a particular organisms when they die. So that is fossils. So according to them, they found that there are fossils of different age. There are fossils of different age, which actually demonstrate that yes, the evolution is taking place, that living organisms are changing and they are not created at the same time. It means that one organism is coming from another organism. That is, there is dependency across the species of living organisms. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call the theory of spatial creation. And this theory was actually proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. So now the next thing that we are going to look at is okay, I think let's rejoin again because it is showing me we have only 1 minute. So I think before we move to the other concept, because if you look at this one, we talk about the biodiversity and the theory of spatial creation. So we are going to stop on this, then we rejoined again. we should rejoin again. We should rejoin again. Okay.